What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. OG here, and finally we have video evidence of what I was talking about all year, and this has been going on for a year. It's similar to Inception, where we keep bringing it up. Finally, EA Sports has answered, which is the most important thing, right? Because this needs to be fixed. But it does drive myself crazy. It drives Inception so crazy that he doesn't even stream this game, much less really play it. He does his player reviews. He stays in tune with the game because it's his job. He makes a living on this. And he knows what he's talking about. But there's still trolls out there even for him. So, of course, I'm going to get them where they act like what we're talking about here doesn't exist. And that is the fact that the inconsistent gameplay comes and goes randomly. And it totally affects the outcome of games. And it's happening more and more often. But not only that, the most important part that especially I've been focused on is that the inconsistency isn't the same for both players. Meaning, in one game, you might have 90% good gameplay, just a little off, right? And your opponent could be playing at about 30%, so they can barely move. And you're just crushing them. They can't get shots off. They can't get passes off. And you can feel this. You can tell. Then the next game, you might have like 40% good gameplay. So now you can barely move, and your opponent is at like 80% good gameplay. So they're a little laggy, but way faster moving than you. Their shots, their passes, everything's getting off quicker. Whereas you could eat a sandwich before your passes or shots or whatever go off. So you barely get anything off. Your opponent's constantly able to steal the ball away from you, constantly able to move the keeper, even when you burn their defense. So they're getting an advantage, a huge advantage. The player that has this much better gameplay gets a huge advantage. But there's always these troll idiots that want to say, bro, the lag is equal on both sides. This is just a myth, Bob. No, this is a fact. EA Sports has came out and said it. But because of their wording, because they didn't want to just outright tell the truth, you had to read between the lines. And these idiots, many of them, can't read between the lines. Therefore, since EA Sports didn't just say, yes, the gameplay is so messed up that one player can have a huge advantage if their game is the game for on their side is more responsive than their opponents. They didn't come out and just outright say that because that would outrage people. Instead, they did a good job of beating around the bush. Now, fortunately, with all the leaks out for FC26, it looks like this is gone. And it looks like the way they said they did is just, oh, now faster passing, faster dribbling, faster shots. So now it doesn't take an hour, and then with bad gameplay, take 2 hours to get passes and shots off so that the opponent can get burned but still recover. Who knows how they really did it? But that, what I just said, does seem to be the case where even in the gameplay that doesn't feel 100%, it feels nothing like this. And that's not from me playing. That's from all the leaks out there. That's from video examples from other people who played the beta and didn't care, just shared it anyway. Playing high ping games in games where they clearly would be lagging otherwise and clearly would have command delay otherwise, and then they don't. Now, the one example that I did see in some of these leak videos is that when you're playing players on PC, because in these betas there is no, crossplay's automatically on. But whenever you're in regular gameplay, you're going to want to turn crossplay off because the PC players, their game just runs so much smoother for them at a way more consistent rate. I'm not saying they never face these inconsistencies in gameplay, but even speaking with a high-level player, shout out Vixery, who plays on both PC and console, he said without a doubt when he plays on PC, it is much smoother, much quicker to get shots, passes, and everything off. And because he plays players on PC and console, he knows for a fact that when he plays console players, right, they are moving at a slower rate, which is essentially like a cheat. It's not his fault, but you can absolutely see this in the leaked footage. And at the end of the day, right, nobody wants that disadvantage every single game, right? That's a huge advantage for PC players. It doesn't mean you can't beat PC players because sometimes you're so much more skilled than someone, you're going to win still. So it's not like, well, I beat PC players all the time. That's not the point. The point is that they're running at a much smoother rate than you are. They're getting passes, shots, dribbles, everything off. Their players are reacting, moving a lot smoother than your players, period. And that seems to still be the case. So, as usual, it's been pretty much the norm for the past several years for all different reasons, whether it's because of all the hackers on the PC side, whatever the reason is. It's just many times players will go, it just always feels like PC players feel much better in game. Well, that's because of what I'm talking about, right? They are, in fact, moving a lot better. Their team, their players individually, the way they are able to get different things off, get their commands off without delay, stuff like that, there is a huge advantage. So make sure you turn crossplay off. On this side of things, though, right, and I'll explain the context. This is Phil Mo, OGFC player that I coach. He's in a draft game. He's been coming along. He's a player that doesn't have much background in the game. Then on top of that, he's been playing UFL and eFootball where there's no dynamic shooting, so precision shooting's new. There's no manual run control, so that's new. And just the game altogether is new, and he's been dynamite, especially on the attack. Defensively, he's still working on things, but guess what? In this game, I noticed there was periods, not the whole game, but periods of terrible delay, right? Ranging from where Phil could barely move to like couldn't move at all, to where he could have just put down the controller. And so in this game, I was able to get the footage from the opponent because these certain terrible gameplay moments, the worst of them came when Phil was on breakaways. In particular, there was one where he was on a breakaway. The delay started. The opponent is just standing there not moving. Next thing you know, Phil, because he's so command delayed, ends up running into a defender. The opponent gets the ball. Now the red bar comes on top of the screen. The opponent's able to go down the pitch and score, and Phil can't do literally anything about it. It was so delayed that his tackle came literally not when Mbappe was engaging with him, but when Mbappe was already 5 yards past. That's how delayed he was. So there's no chance. So I'm going to show you this particular moment, and I want you to imagine that Phil was playing with this type of disadvantage throughout the whole game. You see all the drop frames on the screen, the glitchiness, right? And just imagine trying to play through that with your shots going off a second delayed, your passes going off 1 to 3 seconds delayed, your dribbles, everything, your movement, your player locks, whatever. You couldn't do anything to really get the game feeling normal to where you could actually compete. And then I want you to see what the opponent was feeling on his side. And you can tell that there is a major difference, and this is what I've been saying. So here is the game on the opponent's side. It is only different in that he is wearing a France kit from his point of view. Phil is in the same yellow kit. And you're going to see from the 73rd minute to the 83rd minute, in this time, you are going to see no yellow bars, no red bars. You're going to see no drop frames. You're going to see the passes like that beauty right there, and the shots come off right away. Zero delay. Now, if you want to watch this game in its entirety, you can check out my very last stream. It was titled something about World Championships in Champs or something like that. It was just my very last stream after closest to when this video was dropped. So you can watch this game in its entirety if you want to, and you can see throughout the entire game, Phil was dealing with delay. At times way worse than others, and this was the worst concentrated part of the game. And the opponent showed not only did he not delay at all, right, but he showed what an advantage he did have. You see there, that part that I stopped, that was the only suspicious part where it was like, what were you doing here? If you look all the way at the top of the screen at the left wing, right, he controls only that left winger and then he freezes as if he was doing something. And it's just a crazy coincidence that this is right when that yellow bar pops up for the second time, and then immediately after a red bar where he takes a free kick. You'll see coming up. Look, he's controlling that left winger at the top right there by Phil who had the ball. Look, he's still controlling that one player, not moving. And then now he controls his player. And on Phil's side, that's when the game glitches up. And then at this period, because Phil literally can't move, he dribbles all the way up and scores with Mbappe. At this point, there is a red bar, which you're going to see from Phil's point after this, and Phil can't move. Look at how late this tackle comes off right here. He wins the ball but can't pass. Look, right? Now the tackle went off. That's a whole 2 frames behind that the play is delayed. On Phil's side only. On the opponent's side, it would work perfectly fine. So again, the only suspicious part where it was like, can the opponent's lag spike, whether they're using a hotspot or whatever little silly tricks that these rats use, right? Because this player was very cool, but that doesn't mean anything. He still could have been ratting, just not wanting it to be blasted out there. However, I am deciding to believe him that this was just by coincidence. The only weird part that he still couldn't explain, he said it was totally normal, and he never explained. Look at his left winger right now. He totally was frozen, and if you go back and watch the minutes and watch on Phil's side, that is the exact moment when he was controlling that midfielder and not moving at all, like he was gone from the game for a second. That's right when the bar popped up, the lag started, the command delay, whatever, and then you went from a yellow bar up top to a red bar, warning you of bad gameplay, and of course it was so bad that Phil couldn't move, and the opponent scores. And this happened throughout the game, by the way. This is just the most concentrated moment where a bunch of suspicious things happen. Let's call it that. And why this is so important for everyone's sake is because, for one, it shows that gameplay isn't equal on both sides. One player could have great gameplay while the other has terrible gameplay, and it can be everywhere in between, right? It's on a spectrum. One player could have decent gameplay while the other has terrible. Both players can have great gameplay. Both players can have delay, but at a different rate. And it's always going to be an advantage for the player that is being able to get their shots off quicker, their passes off, where their movement isn't all messed up, because the player movement gets jacked up too, for lack of a better term, right? Your players will all of a sudden make the silliest runs or no runs at all, and then you're forced to use player lock just to get anything going, and guess what? Player lock is also delayed, so that's all jacked up, and it just ruins the game, period. And it gives players that otherwise would be beat easily a chance to not only stay in the game, but to many times win the game. So it's frustrating. The competitive side is totally just destroyed, right? Because football, after all, is a competition. So you can't have one side getting this crazy advantage, and it basically replaces any skill in the game. It becomes a competition of who has less delay, basically, which is insane. That's not what we signed up for when we bought a football simulator. Therefore, it leaves another huge question unanswered, right? As far as FC26 goes, there's no doubt with all the leaks that the gameplay is much more responsive. We have plenty of examples where there's a high ping game and you can tell both players aren't experiencing any delay, right? They're running smooth. So it seems as if EA Sports fixed this issue, but will it change when the full lot of players are playing? Is it a server-related issue? That's the tough part. As I said before, EA Sports finally addressed the issue that they ignored for years, which is why Inception's so mad, because he was the leading voice behind this issue that is a major issue. It's crazy that it wasn't talked about more, but that's what happens when you have a powerful and rich company like EA Sports. They're able to hush things up. So it finally got so bad that they had to address it. However, like I said earlier, you still had to read between the lines. They weren't just all out tell all about the situation. They talked about going to Europe, testing all the different gameplay issues, and here's the things they did. They made passing quicker, shooting quicker, all the movements quicker, sharper. They got rid of a lot of animations that they said bogged the game down, right? However, we don't have an answer as to if certain ratty players can exacerbate the issue that can create worse delay for opponents. In situations like this, sure do look suspicious, where a player stops moving, stops playing for a sec like they're doing something, maybe messing with whatever, their connection, I don't know. I don't know the technical side. Then right as they come back and start playing, boom, as the opponent's on a break, the opponent all of a sudden can't move, the bars come up on top of the screen, and then the worst of all the command delay occurs to where Phil can't even move, and the opponent's able to come down, and as you've seen on his side, perfectly good connection, just runs down with Mbappe. Still gets stopped, by the way, but Phil was so delayed that the player was able to get the ball back on a tackle back, which those are gone too. We've seen enough leaks to know those are gone. EA Sports did address that and fix it. But then the opponent gets the ball back and goes in and scores with Mbappe after Phil attempts a tackle that went off 2 frames too late because of the command delay. While again, the opponent's just flying through, no delay at all. Right? Now, the opponent was very cooperative, shared the gameplay, but again, there's just no explanation for that random freeze where he controlled one player and looked like he left the game for a sec. Right, coincidentally, as he would say, as the delay occurred. You see him at the top of the screen there. So who knows? You be the judge. Maybe you have more insight into this, but again, for FC26 and beyond, nobody wants to continue to deal with this nonsense. Nobody wants to go into games and have a severe disadvantage where they have ridiculous delay, the frames are dropping, their screen's all glitching, and the opponent, on the meanwhile, is totally fine, giving them a huge advantage that will erase all of the skill gap that exists. Sometimes you'll be good enough to cover it, but many times you won't. And that renders the game, over time, pointless to play, pointless to compete in, because you can't even enjoy proper football either. So, let me know what you think in the comments section. I just had to show you this as it is a prime example of what I've been talking about, what Inception's been talking about, and what EA Sports finally talked about. So, the biggest thing, is it totally fixed, somewhat fixed? Time will tell. Peace out.